Hey friend, and welcome back to the Alex Makes VR podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to build rapport with your clients. Existing clients, new clients. Building rapport is in itself a really valuable skill set if you want to build your career or business. So we're going to dive into my biggest tips and tricks on that front in today's episode. Before we dive into that though, as always, if you've got subjects or questions for future episodes, you can reach out to me. I'm Alex Makes VR on all social medias. And if you want to be reminded when these episodes go live, and also just kind of keep a little logbook almost of what the different topics are and some of the key takeaways from these episodes, you can sign up to the newsletter at alexmakesvr.com. So as much as I would love to say that we live in a world where contracts and projects are awarded based purely on merit and talent, I think we all know that at the moment we live in a world where business is a people's game. And I could do a whole episode about why that is problematic and how that contributes to a culture of systemic problems and a lack of diversity. I would love at some point to do an episode all about that. But in this episode, we're going to take it for what it is. The fact is, if you can build rapport, if you can sharpen your ability to build relationships with new and existing clients as quickly as possible, you will be more successful. It's a fact. Why is that? Well, because people want to work with people. They want to work with nice people. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would way rather work with someone who is nice to work with than uber talented but a total dickhead. Like 10 out of 10 times. And don't get me wrong, I've worked with my fair share of dickheads, but they were quickly kicked to the curb on other projects because I realised that I made the wrong decision. And working with someone who, maybe they've got that extra 10, 20% worth of quality or talent or experience, I would way rather work with someone who is nicer to work with, or give someone an opportunity who was a bit less experienced, but just really enthusiastic and had that ability to build rapport. Because let's face it, when you've got good rapport with your teammates, and teammates can be the people that you work with directly in your company or the people that you work with as clients, things run smoother. They run smoother, projects are more successful, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's talk about building rapport. Now, if you are like me, you might have been blessed completely beyond your control with the gift of the gab. You know, you might be someone that just has that natural ability to talk to people. I love people. It's like, I feel like in a different life, I should have been like a psychologist, or I'm not entirely convinced that I won't end up as some kind of, doing something in anthropology or something when I'm older, because I love learning about people. I'm fascinated by people. I'm curious about people. So when I get into a conversation with someone, I don't really see them as an ATM machine. I don't see them as the project manager for blah, blah, blah at blah, blah, blah corp. I don't see them like that. I see them as a person, and I want to know them as a person. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know why they got into what they're doing. I want to know all about the business. Why are they passionate about whatever it is they're doing? If you can be that, if you can be curious about people, you will be able to build rapport much quicker. And I don't know if you've ever been in those situations where you have been pitching someone, but it's very, very clinical and stale, and it's all business. There's no element of no one's putting anything on the table from their personal life. No one's showing any kind of personality. It's just all very clinical. It's so boring. And not only is it boring, but you're just so not likely to be able to work like that. And you're not likely to win work if you can't get to kind of someone to kind of see you as a person, to trust you as a person. So when it comes to building rapport and trust, I like to think that there are two big P's. Okay, I wish that there was three, because I do love the rule of threes, but I couldn't think of a third P, so we're gonna go with two. Number one P, personal. I messed that up, didn't I? Personal. We're gonna keep going because we don't do two takes on this podcast. personal, being personal. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you can get someone to talk about themselves, if you can find common ground with someone as quickly as possible when meeting with them, then they are automatically going to be more endeared to you. Because when we know someone, when someone lets us in or they let us in, we feel closer, we feel bonded, we feel less on edge, we feel less guarded. It's no coincidence that all of my clients, I know so much about them. I know that one of my favourite clients, I know all three of her kids' names. I know that her eldest loves skateboarding and gaming, and he's allergic to peanuts, but he forgets to take his EpiPen with him everywhere, and it gives her a heart attack. I know that her daughter goes to pastry school. I know that another one of my clients is going to propose to his girlfriend soon, and I know how he wants to do it. I know what my clients' favourite chocolate bars are. I know what their coffee order is because we've spent time on set together. I know their investment strategy because they've given me advice and I've given them insight, and we've had a good old laugh about GameStop outside of talking about work. I know my clients as people, and if they stopped coming to me for work, I would still want to know them as people because they're just great people to know. And if you can get your clients, either existing or new, to open up to you, to find something to talk about, you're going to build this relationship that far goes beyond work. And that's the key to kind of a long-term relationship with a client. You can do amazing work. You really can. And obviously doing really good work is obviously by far the biggest thing that you need to be thinking about, obviously. But when it comes to keeping that client and when it comes to the overall relationship with that client, being personable, opening up the kind of lines of communication, finding out about their life, finding out about what they're passionate about, so that you can, you don't want to always just be talking about work. That is my number one tip. Okay, be personal with them. Don't be creepy about it. Don't manipulate them into telling you details and then keep files on them. Just treat them as people. It's so funny what happens when you treat people as people. I know that's so shocking to hear, but I promise you, if the next time you have a meeting with someone or pitch someone or just generally have a call with them or get to know them, if you show interest in them, what's their story? How did they get into what they're doing? If you put the emphasis on them and you get them to open up, I promise you that will put you head and shoulders above the competition who go in there just talking about themselves or just going in there trying to big up their own services and companies. I promise you. The number 2P is proactive. Now, this is the golden sauce, my friends. If you can nail this, and I don't really know how I'm going to describe this because it's such a rare quality, and when you can kind of get the hang of it and when you can recognize it in other people, I think you'll see what I mean. It's a very rare breed that can kind of do this, but being proactive is basically, it's the sure way to win more clients, to build rapport, to retain clients, being proactive. What do I mean by that? I mean, when a lot of people take on new contractors, aka when a client commissions you to do a bit of work, they don't want to hold your hand. They don't want to have a headache. They don't want it to feel like they've got now 1,000,001 things that they need to do because they need to be on you like a rash. They have to answer 1,000,000 questions. That you don't want a client to feel like you and your project are sucking up loads of their time and energy. You want to be as proactive as possible to make yourself indispensable, but also basically invisible where possible. Unless there's very specific things that they need to tell you or that you need to know in order to do your job right, you want to make the commissioning, the production, and the integration of your project seamless. So what do I mean by that? I mean that as someone who is a 360 or VR professional, you need to know from the client's point of view every single thing that they will be thinking, every question that they'll have, everything that they might not have even thought of that is going to be an issue down the line. You need to preempt all of that, take the initiative and solve those problems ahead of time. So for example, if you are working with a client on, I don't know, a VR app rollout, let's say the person you're working with is like, they're ahead of training or they're ahead of HR. They don't know about tech. They don't know about apps. They don't know what's involved. Your job is to make them feel like this is going to be effortless as much as possible, that you are such a professional and you are going to preempt every question and every obstacle they might have, and you're going to handhold them through the process. So if you're in a meeting, like an initial meeting, for example, it might be that you're asking pointed questions about the team size, who is responsible for organising training sessions, for example, who's organised, like how does it work in terms of equipment, like, you know, does every employee have their own laptop, or like or, you know, basically asking these questions about the structure of their business so that you can go, okay, well, based on what I know now and how you roll out training traditionally, this is what I would recommend in terms of implementing this VR program for your specific company. So because you've told me that Liz is she's the training champion that takes the tech and puts it in the rooms when training sessions are happening. What I'm thinking is we need Liz involved from the beginning so that she can kind of steer how this app is going to work from a user point of view, because she will have been there and she will know all of the kind of pitfalls of how your kind of employees interact with your training equipment. So she's going to be a really valuable person. So we would need to work with Liz to do X, Y, Z. Okay, now I did some research on your company, and from my understanding, these are the 3 things that you do really well, and this is your kind of branding. So for this VR program, what I'm thinking is that we integrate those things, and let me ask you a couple of questions around that for those specific things. Do you see what I mean? You're proactively going out of your way to understand their needs before they even know that they are their needs. A big one will be, for example, the rollout strategy. A lot of people that commission 360, virtual tours, VR, they don't really think about the fact that they're going to have to implement this in some way. So again, preempting in that first conversation, or even if it's like an existing client. Okay, so are you looking for these 360 photos to be hosted on your website? Okay, great. Well, I did some research on your website and I've seen that, you know, you're using WordPress theme, blah, blah, blah. There's actually a really easy plugin that we can use. We can basically launch the virtual tour or the 360 photos for you using that plugin. That's not something you need to worry about. The only thing we'll need is access to blah, 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 blah. Or maybe you can put us in touch with your IT department directly and we can blah, 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 blah. See what I mean? You're trying to make that person's job as easy as possible. You're trying to preempt any questions they might have. You're putting yourself in their shoes and thinking, how can I make this as effortless and seamless as possible? If you can build rapport by being personal, being yourself, getting your personality across, finding common ground with the person you're talking with, get to know them, make them feel good, make them feel heard, get them talking about stuff that they're passionate about, and you can preempt what it is that they need and want, and you're basically showcasing to them that you are the no-brainer person to work with, because you're going to come in with your skill set and your expertise, but you're also going to take them from start to finish, and you're not just going to leave them hanging. You're going to understand their business and how your project needs to integrate with that. If you can do that, that is the 1-2 punch, my friend. Like, you are a shoo-in. So the next time you have a chat with either your existing clients or future clients, think about that. Think about those 2 Ps. How can you be personal? How can you, what can you ask people? Get people to talk about themselves. You'll quickly find things about them that, you can get talking about. Get good at that kind of thing. Get okay and be comfortable with sharing a bit about yourself and finding things to talk about with clients that are not just about the work. A great one is obviously when you're going into the meeting for the first time. Tell me about yourself. How did you get into this role? Have you always been passionate about bricklaying? Whatever it is, get them to talk about that. And then if it's not that, then you can find other things to talk about that will get them excited, get them passionate, get that in them in that kind of good frame of mind before you start talking about work. And then when it comes to the work, be proactive. Put yourself in their shoes, preempt any questions or challenges that they might have. Make sure that you are not going to be a burden. You're not going to add loads to their plate by them commissioning you. It's going to be the opposite. You're going to bring nothing but value to the table. So those are my big tips for building rapport with clients. I hope this was helpful. This is one of those episodes where I feel like it's quite difficult to drill down into what it means to build rapport, but hopefully these hit home. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear any feedback you've got. You can reach out to me on Alex Makes VR on any of the social medias. And I just wanted to give you the heads up that we are inching ever closer to episode 100 on the main Monday podcast. And I just wanted to give the heads up that I will be taking a short break after episode 100. Consider that wrapped on season 1 of the podcast. I will be back shortly after though. Don't worry, I'm not stepping away forever. I just feel like after almost a year of grinding away and going at it, I probably deserve a couple of weeks off. So if you want to keep up to date with me so that when I have finished episode 100, when I'm coming back, I would highly recommend you sign up to the newsletter, because those people on the newsletter will be the first to find out when there's new episodes. So you can do that by going to alexmakesvr.com. Okay, with that said, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.